You guys can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So what this is actually the course content what we will be covering. Week-wise division of what we plan to complete. Specifically user experience, all the different divisions, major classes, structures, and all that. Okay. So this is what we will be covering in today's in week 1, and that's starting today. So along the course, we will be building an application as well, which will be a claims application. And yeah, so I think we can get started with today's session. And primarily, we will be covering the enterprise class structure and how you would start an application building. Those are the couple of things. Those are the things that we'll be covering in today's session. Okay. Yep. So okay. Before we get on to that, I would expect that all of you complete an end-to-end application development with a guided approach that I have. I'll show you what I'm just trying to enter here. This one. So this application needs to be built completely end-to-end by you guys. So this is a CSA level application. So once you guys confirm, I'll share this document with you. This needs to be completed in your probably in a week's time by you guys. If you have any doubts, you can ask me about it. But once you're done with that, we will do the full-fledged application development for the CSSA course. Okay. All right. So that's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight before we get started. And if there's no doubts on that, I think we will get started with the course. All right. So I think before that, I just want to get to know a couple of you guys. I think yesterday I didn't get to introduce you guys. So you guys just can quickly tell me your names. What is your experience in Pega? Are you working already on projects? And how many years of total experience you have and all that. Okay, so let's now move forward on the course. Just give me a second. Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's now get started on the first topic that we will try to cover, which is on enterprise class structure. All right. So okay, before we dive into the enterprise class structure, like a couple of things that we need to understand as part of how we're going to build the application. So our requirement today as part of this course is to build a claims application. So we have something like this, claims application. Okay, consider it for a big I would like all of you to be on mute. I think there's some disturbance. Just mute yourself once you have your, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we have our objective here is to build a claims application, and the claims application has some objective to achieve, which is to automate the processing of insurance claims that are filed. So that's the business objective, to increase the turnaround time for claims settling. Okay, so this is the actual objective the business wants to achieve, for which they've chosen Pega as a preferred platform to build the claims application. All right. So they think that using Pega, they can increase or to improve, not increase, probably improve the turnaround time. Improve the turnaround time for claims settling. Okay, so that's for claims application. And to be more adaptive, effective with changes in regulations. Okay, so this is a couple of objectives that the end user or the end business stakeholders want as a return of investment when they start building applications in Pega. Okay, so the couple of things that we need to understand as part of this is what type of application do we want to build. If you see for a CSA level course that I do with my students, the applications that I've built just have only one level of application, which means that you don't have a framework, you just only have an implementation layer. So I say I want to build an application on top of Pega. So generally you have bottommost level, or hold on, this. So you will have basically you'll have the building blocks this way. So you'll have base Pega application at the extreme foundation, so bottom. Pega rules application. Right. And you want to build things on top of the base Pega rules application, what the product is offering to us. So you can build it, you can build one level here, the Pega rules application. Then over here, you can build your application. It's as simple as that. Okay. And the reason why you build on top of a Pega rules application is because you can inherit the features which are there in the Pega rules application onto this application that we have. All right. This is one way of looking at it. The other approach that can be taken is so the other approach that we can take here is we can have not just a direct application on top of it. If you want, we can have build it in such a way that we can have a framework like this. Framework here, okay, and like this, framework on top of this. Then we can have an application here. Okay, so these are this is just another way of building the application, right? So you can either have just a framework or you can have an application on top of it. Like why we would go for all these approaches is what we will talk about. Okay, what is the advantage of having this over the other approach, one approach over the other one? So it's a good analogy that I can draw for you guys is suppose you have something like Java here, okay, and or say for example a good thing would be JavaScript would be a good one. Sorry, okay, so you can have here for example you have JavaScript, the language here. Then you have some simple frameworks on top of JavaScript like jQuery, right? Or you have something like AngularJS, right? And then you have your specific or org specific JavaScript code. Okay, so this is a good analogy that I can draw for you guys to understand why we need to have framework. So if you guys know JavaScript, you have heard of jQuery or AngularJS. That is though they all thrive and exist only because it makes it a lot more easier to develop things when you have a framework. Okay, so some of the key features that are commonly reused, all that you will need is can reuse those features from the framework. It's exactly why framework and an implementation architecture exists in the first place. So the reason why you have a jQuery package and existing in the system is because it makes it a lot more easier to develop, that some common functionalities are already pre-developed and it's kept there. So all that, instead of building on top of the base thing, you build on top of a framework. Okay, so it speeds your development and all that. In the same way, in Pega as well, if you have a framework, that would ease your development time, because you can reuse some common functionalities that are there in the framework. For, let's see here, this is for reusing common features. Okay. Or for developing common assets. That should be a good term I can use for that, for developing common features. Okay, so we have the option either to just develop an application, because if you think that you're not going to build more applications on top of it, you can just develop only an application level here, which is, you can call it as an implementation, right? Direct implementation, or you can have the implementation on top of the framework. Okay, so this is one here, you can have it. So you can have one more application here, and this way, yeah, so in this way we can build the things like this. So you have things like this. And this is one way to look at. So you can have completely different application and implementation like in this approach. So this is an app, and this application also is built on top of the framework, so you reuse those common features. Very simple logic here. Okay, so the application that we will build in Pega is about is a claims application, as I was telling you, but we are under the impression that this is going to be scaled a lot in the future, that that the implementation is going to be across different vibes, which means that across different geographies. So the end requirement is definitely going to need a framework, because we're going to develop common reusable assets there. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the common frameworks in Pega that exist. Okay, so let me just discuss a bit about industry-wide framework that exists in Pega. So the frameworks, their frameworks are different. For industry-wide frameworks that is supported by Pega, industry-wide frameworks. So Pega themselves build this framework so that it's a lot easier to develop things for the end developers. Okay, so industry-wide frameworks. So you have frameworks based on insurance domain, then you have framework for domain. So, and then you have healthcare. So even if sold, okay, then you have one for customer service. Okay, so that is also an important, or basically not just for customer service, it's basically on the lines of how to do it for CRM actually. So customer relationship. It's not an industry-wide actually, so you can have a functionality or CRM. So you have CRM. So it's called customer relationship manager. So these are the common framework which are developed and sold by Pega. Okay, so this is actually called as this framework is called as CPM framework. Okay, so what if you take a look? If you take a quick look at the customer relationship manager framework that Pega provides, which is CPM framework, you will already see couple of integration points when you have a customer relationship. So what do you need for a customer to interact with customers? You need to have social integration. That is a good first thing to start off with. Integration, which is like Facebook or integration and all this. So that's all already done as integrated as part of the framework. So suppose you had to do it on base Pega. By default, Pega does not have it has a capability to integrate with Facebook and Twitter, but there won't be any implementation there. But if you buy the framework from Pega, they would already give you all these Facebook, Twitter integration, all that. Okay, so that is one. The next thing that there will be is about the IVR integration, which is the integrated voice response or telephony integration. This is IVR telephony integration. So which means that when you call a customer service and they will ask you to press 1 for English and then another one for complaints, another one for offers. So all that is actually going to route you to the specific end agent who is going to process this case for you. So that is actually already pre-built into the system as part of the CPM framework. Okay. CPM framework is this one. So you have the CRM. So you have the industry-wide frameworks, and so CPM. This is a good example to let you know what the framework normally will have. So it will have a good social integration for CPM, IVR, telephone integration, and so you have Avaya is actually Avaya is the name of a I think for the guys who provide the integrated voice response. So even for telephones, I think in your corporate world, you guys must have already seen our telephone integrations there. Okay, right. So a couple of things there. CSSA also. So, right. So there's a couple of features which are already built into the framework. When you directly purchase the framework, you get it. Okay. Now for different domains as well, you have very strong frameworks. So let's take a look at what are the common frameworks which are there across industry. So this directly you can see from pdn.pega.com. Let me just open this a second. I'm just sharing my screen. Give me a second. Yes, if I were to just if I were just to check Pega Assistance framework, and you can see all the frameworks that are already available. Even as a matter of fact, some of the customers take the Pega framework, and then some of the implementing partners, they build their own framework and they sell it. Okay, it's also one way. So let's just go directly to pdn.pega.com. Yep. So in here, if you go to the products, think applications by industry, and you can see here all the industries that Pega as of supports. So you have a lot of industries, like about 7 to 8 of them. And if you were to say, let's take insurance for example. Right, so ask me a login. Give me a second. Yeah, so for insurance framework, you have something like called as an underwriting framework. So yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is an underwriting software solutions, which is again a framework for insurance domain. So yeah, you can see here insurance claim software, claims processing software. So we are planning to build somewhat similar to that in our application now. So you can see here insurance underwriting software. Okay. Then there should be another one here. Yeah, you see here there's a Pega customer service for insurance. There's a marketing, distribution management, commercial lines underwriting, the one I was talking to you about, and then Pega claims for insurance. Right. So these are the five insurance wide frameworks that Pega already provides as part of the package that they give. So I think you have to separately purchase it. So yeah, some organizations decide not to purchase and they build for themselves. So say for example, I can just quickly put out the names here. So you have Pega customer service. So which is basically they must have built it on top of this customer relationship manager, okay, with a for insurance specific. Then there is underwriting, right? And you have marketing, and then I think there's a distribution management and then claims. So distribution and claims. Alright, so this is like some of the applications that are provided as part of the insurance domain. So I think you can have more information here as well. So insurance claims software and all the different tools that Pega provides and the frameworks. Okay, so you can go through this. I'll just put across this link. So because we're going to build things on similar insurance framework, that's the reason I was just focusing on this domain. But you can even take even if you see here there's somewhat for different for a life insurance as well. I think almost things are almost the same, but just a couple of differences here and there. Okay, but from a technical standpoint, you need to understand why we have a framework and what's the advantage of having that. And now we will get started with building an application that should show you how the enterprise class structure gets evolved or changed based on the type of application that we built. Okay. So let's actually get started with an application build. Give me a second. So I think by now almost all of you must be already aware on how to build an application. So I'm not going to spend much time explaining to you how an application build happens. But I think, yeah, so in here, start with a new application build here. So we already have the Pega rules application. We're going to build something on top of it, the framework, because we are expecting that our application is going to be used for multiple implementation applications in the future. So we think and hence we require that there is a need for a framework which will have some common reusable assets. Okay. So this is the first step of an application build. So you can just have, I think I'll just explain quickly to you. Express application is just so that it's if you want to give a demo to a customer for Pega sales and all that, you can use the Express application to quickly build it. For enterprise level application or actual real-time implementation, it should always go for enterprise application. Primarily, the difference between these are the different classes that the application creates. For Express application, it need not create an enterprise level class structure, whereas enterprise class application would build all the artifacts which are needed for a complete full-fledged application. Okay, so you can use enterprise application, you can create new application. So a couple of things that we need to understand here is if you see here the application name that we have, so that's something that we need to give. And what's important here is the application structure. So what type of application that we want to build on, and what is a built-on application. So generally you ought to choose Pega rules as a built-on application, and you want to build a structure that is framework and implementation. So you again have the choice just to build only the framework or only the implementation, and then decide how to move forward in the application. Okay, so you can have both framework alone, you can have only implementation, you can have both framework and implementation. Okay, so we would prefer to go with this approach, wherein if you carefully observe here, choosing framework and implementation will generate two applications, which means that at the end of the day, you have two applications built on it, which is the framework level application. When I say it more clearly, this one and this one. Okay, so so you build this, and then you build on top of that, you build this. Okay, so this is part of the wizard. So whenever you choose framework and implementation, this is what the system will generate for you. Application 1, application 2. Right. Now moving forward, if you keep it as framework and implementation, you have to, after which you have to give the organization name, which is irrespective of what type of application structure you choose. You can build whichever organization that you want. Okay, so you can build the organization here. Organization name you can give it. Currently I've given it AIGI, and let's give the application name. I think if you go to the advanced settings here, let's try to give an application name. So I can give it something like claims. Okay, so I'll give it here. And if I click configure advanced settings, yeah, so this is important for you to understand. So this is the application name that we gave. The application record name means that at the back end it creates something called as a rule-application. So let's probably take a look at what are the different rules that the system creates for us. Give me a second. So the first thing here, you have the claims app. Right. So in the backend, the system would create a rule, application rule for us. So this is application. Generally, it was rule-application. Which is nothing but record. If you click on top of this, you click on open application. This is what we're talking about, this application record name. Okay, so you can give it claims app itself to it. There's no harm in doing that. You can say built-on application is Pega rules. And what is the application structure? Do you want a framework and an implementation? Framework only and implementation only. We've already chosen it as framework and implementation. After which we can choose what is the record name. Claims app FW. By default, the system concatenates adds FW towards the end of the name to indicate that the framework is claims app framework. Okay, so naming that they would generally give around this one. Say, example, I can give you. So this is claims app. FW, right? And this one is claims app, right? So you just have an FW indicating that it's a framework, right? So after which you can see what's the version of the framework that you want. Now the important thing here is this organization name here. So a couple of things. Again, enable Pega API access for application administrators. The API is the new feature again in Pega 7, which is some common services that Pega provides. We will talk about it sometime, but for now you can just provide the access. There's no harm in that. The organization level settings are nothing but what is organization name, what is a division, and what is a unit. Okay, so as of now we can see a class structure here, which is the implementation layer. This is important for you to understand. So you can see this is the organization level layer, which is your org name. Application layer is claims app, and what is a work class group name? Generally we leave it as work, and we don't modify that. So either, but if you want in your applications, you must have seen this kind of a naming convention. So you have things like, always a naming convention would be the class naming convention. The class, not just the naming convention actually. So yeah, think of it that way. What's important for you to understand is how Pega is going to build this. So you'll have the org name, okay, hyphen. If you want to create a separate divisions, so you have this checkbox here, generate reusable division records. So observe how the class structure changes the moment I checkbox this. Okay, by default it will be just org name hyphen app name application name the work hyphen the case name. Okay, what type of case you want. So this is how the normal case class structure would be. So an example of this is hyphen claims app hyphen work hyphen. What type of case do you want? So if you have a case, you can give it something like underwriting. This one case. This is the class structure that is there without having to do without having a division layer. So the moment I select the division layer, see here it says generate reusable division records. You can see that a division layer comes up in between in this class structure here. Right. So this is important for you to understand. So you can see here, if the moment you say generate reusable division records, you can see here the organization layer, after which you have the division, then you have application, and then the work group name. Okay. Moment now carefully observe the class structure has slightly changed now. So now you will make it org name hyphen division name hyphen. Now the same thing all over again. Okay, and you can give it name like this. So if you carefully observe the naming convention now, so you see org, that is AIGI, right. And then you have the division. So I said claim is the division, right? And I can have the app name, work hyphen, and the case name is again underwriting. Right. So you have one more level in your class naming convention. So the moment now again, if you select reusable unit records, it introduces one more layer in between. So uh, most of enterprise level applications will have this kind of a class structure, wherein you have one layer for org. So whenever you have a differentiation between, like you have a hyphenated difference, but in your class structure, you're essentially telling the system that you have one for org name, one for app name, for work, one for case name. So you have like different levels actually. So you can have a reusable feature at the claims division level. So which means that the feature that you're going to develop is going to just have the class name as org hyphen, or the rule that you will develop will just have naming convention like this. So suppose whenever I say that I want to have a feature at the organization level or at the division level, say for example, I say I want something of having only at the division level, then I will just give here org name, the class name of the rule that I'm going to develop will be just AIGI-claim. So the moment I give the class name as AIGI-claim, which means that I'm going to develop the feature only at the division level, which automatically means that all the other entities, all these ones, right, this app name, work, case name, they can already inherit from this. Okay, so the moment I put it at a level which is a higher level, which means that all the class names, classes, or the rules which are at the bottom of the stack can inherit this feature. Okay, so I think there's a quick question here. What is the significance of two checkboxes? Does it simplify the development process? Which these, you mean to say these two checkboxes? One is for division and the other is for including the unit records. So it doesn't simplify development. It just this is the class structure that we need to very strongly think through before we go ahead with the development. Okay, so this moment I checkbox this here. If I say uncheck this one, you lose the division unit layer here. So checkbox this, you get the unit layer, right? So the way, let me just show you now how the class structure is there for when I say add unit also, when I include a unit, it will be org name hyphen division name unit name. Then you have the app name, you have the work, and you have the case name. So this is a kind of an important thing that you need to understand. I think even very commonly asked in interviews as well. What is your class? What is your application class structure? So you need to explain to them that this is what this kind of a class structure is what you have. So suppose example here, you can have this AIGI, and then you have the claim. Unit is, let's take a look at the unit here. So I have unit 1. Okay. Or I can just say that a unit for some particular preferred customer unit, something like that. So I can give preferred or priority banking or something like priority insurance. Okay, that's the unit name I give. And now you give claim tab work hyphen undirected. Okay, so this is how the class structure would span out over a course of I mean, during the initialization phase of the application development itself. When you build the application itself, you need to establish this class structure. Okay, so even if you were to look at this, is more like a pyramid structure. But I want you guys to slowly understand this, why we go for this kind of an approach. So let's start like this. Okay, so So you can have it somewhere like this. At the top of the stack, you have the AIGI. Okay. Then just one level below, you have the division, just claim. Okay. Then you have, and after this you have the unit, which is thing you just said. You can have the unit here, like I think I have a unit here called as priority. Okay, you can give it any name for the unit that you want. After which we have the work group, then you have the specific case that you have. Okay, so but obvious if you give it like this. Yeah, I think I missed that. So work, so you have the app name here. So you can just have it like this. So if you have this priority, within the priority you can have again multiple divisions units here. Okay. The work, and then finally you have the case here. Okay. So you can have multiple cases here. So, but obvious the divisions. So, looks a bit ugly though. Alright, but alright. So but the important thing that you need to understand is if I were to introduce a feature at the organization level, that is at this level, I'm sure that I can all the implementing rules here until this case, everything here gets this access. Okay, so the moment I put something on the claims level, obviously everything comes up. So I can have one more division here, then I can have multiple units here. Okay, and I can have multiple applications here, right? So I can have some more, then I can have multiple work pools, right? At these levels, then I can have multiple cases also here, right? So this is kind of key for all of us to understand because it's a very commonly asked thing, and even at your work also you should be clear when you need to introduce this kind of a class structure. Generally the architects do this, but as a developer you need to understand when to go for one kind of a class structure or what is the advantage of putting a rule, because you will be the person who will be taking the decision whether you want to put a rule at this level or this level or this or this or this, or at the end you just want it at the case level, right? So if you think that there is a feature which is very commonly used, you can put it at the application level. But if you think that it's more commonly used elsewhere, you can just put it one level above. Now let's look at what are the typical ways where we need to put all these rules in that particular perspective. So the way that we will put it is, so integration, very commonly used integration points, then the logo of the company, okay, then the login page screen which shows the logo of the company, then some more features which are specific to your a skin type which is specific. Some companies always follow a common skin like CSS, so which means like they have a common color across all their applications. Those kind of things you will always need to put it at your organization level. So you can put the logo CSS skin, right? These kind of things you can put at the organization level. Okay, then say division and unit level, you can put common integration points. Say for example, if there is some integration with an external entity, for claims for example, if you want to integrate with some external payment service, like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, or anything like that. So you can use integration points at the organization at these division and unit levels. And then at work and at your application level, you can have again some more common features like say a good example that I can give you at the top of my head for application level integration, or say for example a feature like creating a PDF, okay, or a PDF viewer, which is something which is a good feature to have. So you want to have a PDF viewer, so but in a particular format which is needed only for your application. That something is a feature that you can put on your application level. Okay. Then at the case level, you can have your actual business logic here. Right. So you put the business logic here. Right. So this is how the class naming convention should be, and is that this you need to really understand thoroughly. Okay. Now, if you see here again, there is a class structure for the framework layer. So what we just discussed now was specific to the implementation level. Okay. Now for the framework, we have a similar structure but slightly different. So let me show you what's the difference here. If you see here, it says org-framework the application layer and then framework class group name. So you don't have a division and unit in the framework layer. So no division and unit separation in the framework layer. Instead, the way you have class naming convention is, so you have org name, okay, hyphen, by default you have the word FW, then you have the app name, then by default you have a concatenation there, app name FW, right? Then at the end you have the class group name. Or just say work, okay, let's give work hyphen the case name. So example on how this turns out is you have AIGI, okay, hyphen FW. Then what is the framework level class name? So you can have it something like you will claims app FW work hyphen underwrite. Right. So there is a good, there's a couple of good concepts that you need to understand on how then this framework interacts. Currently, whatever you've seen here is just within your application. No framework is not seen here. So it's within your application. Okay. Now the inheritance is all like this, straightforward. The topmost level just inherits. The bottommost one inherits from the level above, and so forth and so on. Now you can have this kind of structure, but Pega also supports multiple inheritance, so which is like two types of inheritance. This kind of inheritance, what you see here, wherein this case, or this one here, inherits from work, from claims app, or from the organization level or the division and unit levels. This straightforward inheritance with the classes which are hyphenated with the name above this is called as a pattern inheritance. Okay, so you see here this kind of an inheritance here. You have a pattern inheritance. Okay, now what happens here is now how do you touch base with the framework layer. So you have all the class structure like this. It's all good. Now, how do you touch base with the framework? That is when you have another type of inheritance called as a directed inheritance. So say for example this case, you can have it also to inherit from another entity here, which is the framework level. That's to framework. Okay, so now you have the case having a directed inheritance to the framework. So you can have it, so the way that to turn out is, so if you open this particular case here, you can see that in the directed inheritance, it would actually be pulling the information from here, from this class. So that's make more sense, right? Right. So you have automatically you have your class structure, wherein you inherit things from this, from top to down, you inherit the things. Apart from this one, if you want, if you say for example, generally pattern inheritance is what takes precedence. Again, that's customizable. So if you want to inherit the features of your organization first, but apparently that feature is not available at the organization level, you can take it from the framework level as well. Okay, so from the framework layer, you can have a directed inheritance to this one. So first, generally you'll have the pattern inheritance, which is to inherit from all these. Second step, you will have the inheritance from the framework. Okay, which is nothing but directed inheritance. Okay, so is it clear? Do you guys have any doubts here? This is an important concept to understand. So if this is clear, we will take a look at the actual class structure now. This is the actual class structure. Let's see how the application is building it. Let's just see a demo on this. Okay, so I just gave here a case type. Just put some business objective. We will build the application tomorrow, but this today is just to understand the class structure, which is a key concept. So yes, for example, I say underwriting. Okay. Now the data types. So again, you have the reuse layer, whether you want the data to be at the framework or the implementation. So no difference, not much difference here. If I were to put it at, say for example, I were to put it at the framework level, then I will have the class structure according to that. I'll have a directed inheritance from it. Otherwise, I will have a pattern inheritance from the implementation level. So we will just put two things here. Say, for example, the first one that I have is customer info. I'll take this customer, the framework. Then I can have claim, or I can say policy, right, which is at the implementation level. Right. Now, when I click preview, I can see the actual class structure here. Let's see how the system builds it, and let's just see how whether whatever we saw is implementing whatever we learned. Okay, it's just in accordance with whatever we learned. Now you see the first thing that you have to understand is the organization level. So you see here, generic is a top level class. It's AIGI, and when I say it inherits from, this is this part here, what they highlight. This is the directed inheritance actually. It says work dash cover dash, which is the common inheritance point for almost all the applications, because Pega already provides some good out of the box features at work dash cover dash class. So work dash cover dash automatically has a pattern inheritance to work dash. So they have a lot of features So we're just trying to reuse them. Okay. Right. Now this is the organization level. So you have organization level, this one, and then you have the base framework as well, AIG-FW. Okay. So you see here whatever we learned. So it has AIGI. This is what we learned. This is the org level, right? Then you have the AIGI-FW, right? So this is much in accordance with whatever we estimated now. Now moving forward. So you have integration layers there as well. So which is like if you want to have, they are creating a class there. So it says AIGI-int, which means that you have some good integration points there. Say, for example, you want to have an organization-wide integration other than logo or skin. If you guys think that there should be an integration here, you can put the integration here as well. But again, that's all based on your specific project. But whatever I showed you is just the common ones. But if the requirement is that there is an integration that needs to be done at the organization level, that can also be done. Okay. Right. So
can you explain this work dash cover dash ones? So AIC is inheriting from work dash cover dash?
yeah, that's true. So what happens here is, so you have, this is your application, right? So you have AIGI. So by default, can you tell me if there is a pattern inheritance for this, which is AIGI-claims app and work-underwriting. Okay? So this is a normal scenario. Now for this AIGI, which is like the topmost level, it doesn't have anything to inherit from. There is no pattern inheritance for it because that's the topmost one. Now, because Pega supports one more type of inheritance, which is directed inheritance, we can use that, leverage that feature to get some additional features. So those additional features are what Pega automatically is mapping it to the work dash cover dash class. Okay. The reason for that is because first thing, there's no pattern inheritance for it anymore. This is like the topmost level. So there's nothing on top of this, right? It's like this is the top of the stack. Now for directed inheritance, it uses features from work dash cover dash class. So there is an out-of-the-box class called as work dash cover dash, which whose actual objective or probably a functionality is to provide some common reusable entities, like some common properties, like say, for example, here, so if I were to say work dash cover dash, you see here this work dash cover dash inherits from work dash as well. So what this class is, this class has some common properties, some common reusable properties, then common reusable activities, like add child work, create child work, so create child. Then you have some add work, add covered work, all these features here. Okay, so reusable properties again, like covered count and some properties. These are like some common features which this work dash cover dash class has. So instead of us building all these tools again from scratch, why not reuse the things which Pega already provides? So we inherit from that particular class. Does it make sense?
Yeah. It seems like in Java we can get that predefined things from object class. It's like that only, right?
Exactly. So just a couple of differences there. That I mean, if you're extending or I think you can either extend from a class or you can implement the class. So that's like slight difference. But essentially, if you want to get the features of a different object class, you just get it from there. Okay.
Okay.
So here we will need to inherit from there. That is the reason why we go for inheriting from work dash cover dash. Pega automatically is building that for us. Right. So again at the organization level also you can have a data layer, which is like AIGI-data. Okay. So this is like an overview of what we have at the organization level. At division level you have the same thing. See AIGI- they just truncated that to claim the division. It's made it like 4 letters alone, because by default uh, there is a limitation that the class name is actually a varchar of 64 in the database, so you cannot have more than that, so it will give you an error. So, the reason Pega truncates the class names accordingly, but you can override that, it's not a problem. Again, the data and integration layer here as well. And what's important to take a look at here is, observe here is the framework level. Yeah, the framework level, remember we had put customer at a customer kind of a class structure here. We said, you see here that the class name for the framework is AIGI org-fw claims at fw data customer. So this is a framework level class structure. See here like this, org-fw claims fw work-case name. So instead of work, we can have at the data level as well, which is like data-customer. So we selected one of them as a framework, and the other one that we had was I think at implementation level. So if I want to check here, we had 2 of them, remember? So we took policy at the implementation layer, and this one was at the framework layer. This is a quick overview about the class structure that we have, but this is exactly the way that we designed it or we understood it here. And let me know if there are any doubts here, anything that you want to clarify. Okay. So what I think that yeah.
Uh, can you please explain what is the customer and policy that we discussed before? I don't understand that part.
Yeah, so I just
Yeah.
quickly touched upon that. We will be covering that tomorrow in detail.
Okay.
We'll be
Okay.
building this application. As of now, just I'll explain that to you tomorrow. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once we create the application, where can we see the class structure? You can see that here on this application explorer. You can see this classes here. If you want to see the class structure like this kind of a preview, I think that I don't think it provides that. Pega doesn't by default provide that. You can build an application and then here see the structure alone. Like you will have to see it this way. You can see here, say for example, I make this, and then now just put only AIGI. You can see all the different divisions, units, and everything available. Okay, so you can see from here, from the application explorer here in Pega.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
All right, I think, all right, I hope you understood. This is an important concept for you to understand, the class structure. I'll send across, I'll put this in the class notes. So under day 1, this will be there, all these 3 images. So in tomorrow's session, we will actually start building the application. All right, and then we will look at what is a data level class structure is also slightly different. So, but the key concept is you have both pattern and directed inheritance. When you do a directed inheritance, you inherit it from a framework, or even in this case, you can even do it from a work dash cover dash. Otherwise, you go for a pattern, which is already by default. There's a pattern that's available at the org, division, and unit layers. Okay. All right. Any doubts here? Anything that you want to clarify? If not, we'll call it a day. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time. All right.
So,
Yeah.
Rahul, quick question. So, for the exercise, do we have to
download the personal edition to our desktop?
Yeah. Please do that. I think at least for a couple of days, I wouldn't be giving you exercises. Instead, I will share this document with you. I want all of you to build this. It's a very easy app, but even if you're very confident, please build it once. And if you have any doubts, you can clear that in the class. Okay.
Rahul, Sudha here. I already installed 7.1 in my machine. Is it okay, or should I install 7.2 to do all the exercises that you will be giving in the classes in the forthcoming sessions?
Yeah. So, but that I'll need to take a poll with all of you guys. So, what is the application that you all have, the personalization? Because you already don't have 7.1. Then I think if you request from Pega now, they give only 7.2. So, what are the softwares that you guys have? Do you guys already have 7.2 or 7.1? Well, I think Sudha, she said she has 7.1. What about the rest of you folks?
I have 7.1, Rahul.
Okay.
7.1 I have. This is Ramana.
Yeah. Saran and Sanjay, what about you guys?
I have
Yeah,
not
I have
installed. Tomorrow
not
I'll
one.
try.
And Saran, yeah, what is the one you have?
I have both 7.1 and 7.2.
Okay. Sanjay, what about you?
I have not installed. Tomorrow I will try to install. I got a
Okay.
link from Ashock. Tomorrow
Okay.
morning I'll install.
You must be having 7.2 then. Right. So I think almost all of you have 7.1. I will ask Ashok to give you 7.1 itself. So let's, as of now, I think CSSA is still on 7.1. So you can do 7.1 actually. So Sanjay, just hold on from installing Ashok. Let's share a different link. You can install 7.1. And then let us all stick to 7.1. Let's not move to 7.2 yet. All right. So all right. So I think since
Rahul,
all
I heard that recently CSA also moved to 7.2. So any idea about CSSA?
yeah, no, there's no official word from Pega on that. As of now, recently all my students have done it on 7.1. It's all right to do it on 7.2. I'm good with it. I can teach you on 7.2, but I don't think the certification itself is available on 7.2. But even if it were to move, it will take some time. So they will give you a buffer time of at least 6 months to complete to take the exam on 7.2. So I think you should be good. It's not something to worry about. All right.
Oh, okay. No problem. Thank you.
All right. So good day, guys. Thank you for your time. Tomorrow, I'm sorry there was a delay in today morning session. I'll make sure that doesn't happen. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Good day,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, Rahul.